everyone, and welcome back to a bit of chiptune. My name is Tris, and today we have Motavian Raider, aka Char, and
Cass.
And maybe another guest later, if we can figure out technical difficulties. But today, the plan is to talk about spooky stuff for Halloween. So, I love Halloween. Like, how do you guys feel about the spookiest holiday of the year?
It is the spookiest.
Honestly, I think it's way more fun when you're a kid because there's this magic of, I get to dress up and I go out and get a bunch of shit ton of candy. But you don't really get to do that when you get older. So it's just kind of like, I guess I'll watch a scary movie or something. But I mean, that's cool too. So
that's
there's my
Halloween is my favorite season of the year. I don't care how old I am. I love the spooks. I love the horror, and I love the candy.
Yes. Yeah, the great thing about being an adult during Halloween time is that you can just go buy your own candy.
I mean, yeah, just wait until Halloween's over and then all the candy gets discounted and just buy a shit ton.
That's true.
Yep.
It's like the day after Valentine's Day.
All the sad breakup candy and stuff.
Oh man.
So Char, it kind of sounds like you're not dressing up this year.
Well, I don't really have anything to dress up as. I don't really have any costumes lying around. But I probably would if I had something.
What would what would you do? Any ideas?
Probably something easy. You could just go as Bart, just wear a red shirt, spike up your hair, wear some shorts. There you go.
Fair enough. How about you, Cass?
This year is a little bit complicated because I love Halloween and my girlfriend wants to do a couple's costume.
Oh.
But we're having trouble finding a costume that doesn't require one of us being a man, and that makes things complicated.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll figure it out.
Yeah. The only things that I could think of would be Utena and I want to say Anthe from Utena.
Yeah. I don't know. So we'll see. We keep thinking Lady and the Tramp, but I don't know. We'll figure that out.
Oh, that would be cute.
We could eat spaghetti together.
Oh.
That was the plan. That was what we were gonna do. We were gonna make spaghetti and we were going to go out in our little dog costumes and have a fun night.
That's adorable.
Wow. I just got a toothache from how sweet that was.
Yeah, another great thing is that our anniversary is right before Halloween. It's 2 days before.
Oh, wow.
It's the best time of the year twice.
all of the good things happening at the end of October. Yeah, I was not sure what I was gonna do costume-wise, but I ended up settling on Velma from Scooby-Doo.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah, partly just because she has glasses, and there aren't that many good bespectacled characters that you can dress up as.
Yeah, that's kind of true. I can't really think of a whole lot.
Alternatively, I think one of these years I'd like to be Luca from Chrono Trigger, or another one of Akira Toriyama's characters.
Oh, that would be really cool.
Yeah, I think I might be able to pull off a Bulma or a Dr. Slump character. Yeah, so I mean Halloween is a great time. Okay, do you guys have any Halloween traditions? Any movies that you watch every year or anything like that?
Not really. I don't usually do much for Halloween besides maybe play a spooky game,
Yeah.
Last year. Well, no, not last year. A couple years ago, I beat this game for the Master System called Master of Darkness, and that was pretty fun. So
that sounds like a very Halloween appropriate game.
yeah, it's basically a Castlevania clone for the Master System. So it's pretty fun. I like it.
Nice.
I love Nightmare Before Christmas. If we're talking movies, I probably see that almost every Halloween.
Yeah, that's a classic.
Oh, did everybody change their names for Halloween on the internets? I'm Spoopy Cass now.
Nice.
I have friends who do that, but I don't usually do anything because I don't want to confuse people.
I don't remember what I was last year, but this year on Twitter, I'm Jack-o'-lantris.
That's good.
I mean, it's like two of my favorite things. It's like puns and Halloween, so it's like right up my alley.
Oh, you know what I should do this year though? I should binge watch like all the Simpsons, like Tree Houses of Horror.
Oh,
I mean, all the good ones
yeah.
anyway.
yeah, that's important distinction.
Simpsons completely passed out of my radar for some reason. Like, I don't forget about that.
Yeah. So, well, I guess in terms of my own Halloween traditions, like I've been kind of trying to figure that out. Like, I love doing jack-o'-lanterns. Like last year, I made this like a Bowser themed one. I thought that came out pretty cool.
Ooh.
I like watching like all kinds of Halloween movies, like whether they're actually scary, like The Exorcist, or like a slasher film, um, or like the more kid-friendly ones, like I love Hocus Pocus and like Beetlejuice and all those movies. So I'm probably gonna get into some of that later this week.
If you make another Bowser jack-o'-lantern and put a crown on it,
Oh my god,
you'll be up to date.
A Bowsette jack-o'-lantern.
That sounds very cursed, but also very. At the same time, I might enjoy that. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like it's all in the execution.
It's gonna be the scariest thing on the block.
Yeah. Oh man, what a world we live in that Bowsette became a thing.
Oh yeah,
I know,
I love
right?
Nintendo's statement on it. It's like we have no comment on what the internet has done.
I mean, yeah.
Are they gonna like put Bowser?
What are they supposed to do?
Are they gonna put Bowser
I mean, it's
in
like
the game?
how are you even like as like a company? It's like what do you even have to fucking say about that?
Seriously, I honestly like got my hopes up because I saw on Twitter like somebody made a really like convincing fake, but it was like Nintendo of America or something like that.
Nintendo of Antarctica.
Yeah, something like one of those. And I saw it, and I was
I
like,
love
no.
It was really funny because Nintendo of Antarctica like made like a fake thing, like, oh, there's a new Spyro game coming out, and it got like 12 like thousand retweets or some shit because people thought it was real.
Aw. I mean, when was Nintendo ever involved with Spyro?
Isn't the trilogy thing coming out on the Switch?
Oh, yeah, maybe. Well,
I don't know.
Did the
I don't really follow that stuff.
yeah. That was like not quite my. It wasn't necessarily a generational thing. It was just like I had so many other like good games to play through that I never really got into Spyro.
Yeah, you had like an N64, right?
Yeah, I did. I had an N64 and a Super Nintendo that I played like I mean that I still play to this day. But like I had a PlayStation, but I didn't get a PS2 until like well after the PS2 Slim came out. So I missed a lot of like
I think I spent most of my teenage years on the PS2.
yeah. I was like I was late to it. Like I was a fan of Kingdom Hearts way before I started playing Kingdom Hearts. I just liked it in concept, and there was like a commercial for it on some Disney movie that I had. The first one that I played actually was Chain of Memories.
I have not played Kingdom Hearts, but from what I've heard of it, it's really complicated.
Yeah, it's extremely complicated. I kind of miss
Oof,
the not
yeah.
as complicated days of like 1 and 2.
Yeah, Kingdom Hearts has gotten weird.
Yeah.
I haven't been keeping track of it. I just kind of like am just gonna enjoy it.
Yeah. So earlier, Char, you mentioned a Halloween themed game. I think it was like Master of Darkness.
Yeah, it's a game on the Master System, yeah.
Ah, yes, the ever so present Master System.
Yeah, and he's
I'm just a huge fan. I can't deny that.
yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's nice to have some representation for it.
It's kind of a weird console because
Yeah.
it like really only got support for like 3 years.
Ugh.
And then it was just kind of like, okay, we're gonna make the Genesis now.
I mean, that was clearly a smart business decision.
Yeah, because it just like it didn't really do any well anywhere besides like Europe and Brazil.
Brazil of all places.
Well, the reason why it did so well in Brazil is because Nintendo didn't even bother with it.
Oh.
so it like had no competition.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first game series that I think of when I think of Halloween is definitely like Castlevania. So it was interesting that you brought it up as like a Castlevania clone.
Yeah. I mean, it was weird because like back then, like Sega couldn't get like a lot of like third party licenses because Nintendo like had them all.
Yeah.
So like whenever they couldn't get a game, they would just make a clone of it.
Yeah. Um, is the music kind of similar or like the art style?
Well, I mean, it's very like gothic. I mean, it takes place in like I think like 19th century Europe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of got that vibe, but I don't know. I think the sound design's really good, like music wise, but I'm not really too impressed like with the music itself. No, I think Castlevania has like way better music, but for what it is, like it does its job.
Yeah, Castlevania. Oh, Castlevania's so good. It's so hard too.
Yeah.
Like the original Castlevania. I've beaten it a few
Well, I
times,
mean-
but it was like really challenging.
Well, the trick is that you just gotta use holy water and everything. That's how you beat the game.
Yeah, that's fair. Like item management is really important. But like to this day,
Yeah.
Medusa heads are like the bane of my existence.
Oh yeah, the hallway before you fight like the Grim Reaper is the fucking worst.
Yeah,
Jesus
and like
Christ.
the knockback that like just knocks you into pits so easily, and interrupts your jumps.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
ugh.
I mean, I'm kind of glad they fixed that for Super Castlevania 4.
Yeah, Super Castlevania
You
4
can
is
actually
like
control your jump.
Castlevania, but with like all cheats enabled.
Yeah, because you can put your whip in like any direction, and you can actually control your jump in midair. So it's like I don't know. It's definitely like a more like beginner friendly version of like the NES ones, I think.
Yeah. Cass, do you have any like Halloween themed games that you go to or that you really like, or spooky games?
Oh, oof. I mean, not like every year. I can't. Yeah, I don't really have any spooky games, which is weird for me because I love spooky things. But
I mean, have you played any of
I don't
like
know.
the newer spooky games, like Doki Doki Literature Club, or like
I have played Doki Doki Literature Club. I didn't get very far.
Oh
but-
no!
And that's because no, I know the whole thing, but the reason I didn't get very far was because I was trying to like play with a friend, and then the friend
Oh.
lost interest very quick because they're not into anime,
Yeah.
and they didn't realize where it was going.
Yeah. Yeah, that one was rough. I remember a few years back, like Slenderman was like a huge thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay, this is weird. I ended up seeing the Slenderman movie.
Oh really? I didn't even realize that it came out. I was
Yeah.
actually gonna ask about that.
The Slenderman movie came out, and my sister wanted to see it just for the memes.
Was it any good?
We weren't interested in the movie. Not really. In my personal opinion, no. It wasn't that great. Sorry, Slenderman. He'll come for me now.
He's gonna be
Basically-
like, "How dare you dislike my movie?
How dare you insult my movie? Basically, it was just all the horror stereotypes packed into a movie, and I mean, basically, there was no respect for silence in the theater either, because my sister was laughing and so was everybody else around us. Just like, it was supposed to be scary, but it was just like not. And you know what was weird? A baby started crying in the back.
Who brings a baby to watch
Like, somebody-
Slenderman?"
And then I don't know. And then like I was like, okay, whatever, at least the baby doesn't know what's going on. And then some toddlers started talking in the back.
Just like
Ugh.
And then everybody in the theater basically lost it.
Wow, that's
So that was Slenderman. Worth the viewing, but not for the right reasons.
It was the experience, I'm sure. Yeah. I mean, this is one of those things that I think really is a generational thing. For me at least. But like, I completely missed the boat. I've never played any of the games. But like, I think all the kids are all hopped up on like Five Nights at Freddy's, right? Like, that's a spooky game that everyone knows and likes?
I mean,
It's kind of died down.
yeah, I don't think anyone really cares about it anymore. But apparently, a movie is in production, so maybe it'll go back up. People will start paying interest again.
I heard about that, but that was like years ago when I heard about
Yeah,
that.
so I don't even know if it's like still in production. But
I have in fact played Five Nights at Freddy's. I never got jump scared, but the reason for that is because I didn't go past the second night because I didn't want to get jump scared.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of jump scares, especially when they're like loud jump scares, because I'm always like, my ears. Those are like my life.
Yeah, I would just go through the first and second nights over and over again, and it was fun. And I feel like I learned a little bit about horror from that game, but didn't really get to play that much.
Yeah, like the only thing that I know about them is like what I've seen from like the Game Theorist channel.
That's a lot, yeah.
Like I became oddly invested in like the lore of Five Nights at Freddy's, but like I've never.
yeah, it's weird because it has a very deep lore for a game that you can beat in like an hour, maybe.
Yeah, and that you don't even move around in.
Yeah, you don't like. I don't even. It's like it's not like a game. It's more like an arcade game. I think.
Right. You know, they recently whoever created it, and I should look this up. Scott Cawthon. Scott Cawthon came out with a new one, I think, very kind of recently, and it was like an arcade kind of style, like where you, from the get-go, you would like pick who was in the room and like what level they were. And I don't think that's like as scary, but it is like kind of interesting. Like it kind of like puts it in the
it was like ultimate
arcade realm as opposed to.
Basically, he went full Capcom and was like, Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Night Super Arcade Edition.
Five Nights at Freddy's or World Warriors.
2 Turbo.
Right, it's Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Custom Night. That's what it's called.
Yeah, I think like it's really interesting because if you think about the different games that we've brought up, like they're all very different, right? Like Five Nights at Freddy's is all about the jump scares, and same with like Slenderman. Doki Doki I think is slightly less jump scary. Like there are a few moments, but like in my experience it was way more like unsettling and like story based.
Right. Are we going to talk about SCP Foundation? Because that's another one.
Oh, that's a cool game.
I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, wow. So the SCP Foundation, the idea is that there's it's kind of like a government, but it's like also kind of like an independent project that like holds objects that do unusual things and like creatures that do unusual things. It's kind of like a horror style setup. Star, if you have any way to help me out here. But they have like there's also like a wiki for it, and at this point people have written like thousands of different SCPs, and each SCP is like a different object that does some other strange thing, and it's actually really interesting. I actually wrote for SCP Foundation for a little bit,
and then kidding.
Yeah, and then I was weird and I deleted my but you can still find my old at least critique and my old drafts if you really look around the wiki in like the forums and stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So this is like it's like a community created like game then, right?
I think
kind of. It's a community created wiki, and then like another group kind of like made the game, probably like offset of that community, and then it got really popular because of the game.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, so I guess the idea is you're like stuck inside a facility that the Foundation owns, and you're running away from something. It was written very similarly to like the Angels from, what's it called?
Doctor Who?
Doctor Who, yeah, where like you can't like blink and you have to like look at them. I think it was written like a few months before that episode. But either way, yeah, you're like trying to get through, and then along the way you like encounter different objects that do strange things, and wow, that has like so much lore, more lore than Five Nights
Yeah.
at Freddy's. Now that I think about it, it's kind of endless. You can't really get into all that.
So you mentioned earlier, Cass, that like even playing just the first 2 nights of Five Nights at Freddy's, like you learned something about horror.
Oh, well, not. I also like it was like the hot thing, so I also watched like some videos and stuff. I think it mostly just got me interested in like horror in general, and I wish I could go back to my mind at that time because I had very specific ideas that I
Yeah,
faded.
that's funny. I was just gonna ask you, like, what were some of the things you learned?
Yeah, I guess just like things like I don't know, like things that you omit to make things kind of scarier and how it can be effective versus how it can't be effective, and like avoid like how to I've been reading a lot of Junji Ito. Do you know who that is?
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh, great segue. I guess like similar to Five Nights at Freddy's, something that Junji Ito does that I really like about horror and the SCP Foundation is like take something that's kind of familiar and does
Yeah.
something really weird with it. Like I have right nearby, but I'm not gonna leave the mic. Is it Uzumaki
Yeah.
series, which is the spiral one? Are you familiar with that? Yeah.
A little bit.
Anyways, yeah, I'm a big fan of like that type of thing where people who write horror like take something that's kind of familiar and like warp it or like put a spin on it that makes it strange, and like that strangeness taken to an extent makes it like really creepy and like horrific almost.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I have some thoughts about that regarding like other stuff, but I just wanted to point out that like there are some Junji Ito references in Steven Universe, like the kindergartens are a
Really?
reference to the one about like everyone has a hole.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, and even like Amethyst directly like quotes it. She was like, "This one's my hole." She's like, she even says it like creepily. She's like,
This was my
"It's
hole."
me sized" or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah. Every amethyst has a hole, and one day they must all return to their hole.
yeah,
All right, let's not get it too deep into this. Junji Ito, look it up. It's horrific.
Yeah. It's top shelf spoops. But yeah, like you were talking about making ordinary things creepy, and I think like that is an extremely common theme in horror. Like Five Nights at Freddy's, right? Like a lot of people our generation, I mean, more or less, grew up with things like Chuck E. Cheese, and those animatronics, especially like in the early days, were really creepy. But you didn't care about it because you were all hopped up on sugar and pizza. But like, like Five Nights at Freddy's, I think does a really good job of taking that kind of like ordinary thing and making it creepy. And same with like, what is it, Child's Play, the Chucky movie. I mean, I don't know how scary it is in hindsight, but like,
I mean, it's like a horror comedy,
but
so
like, I mean, as a kid, they take a doll, right, which most kids have or at least have seen, and they make it all scary, and like, you could think of like a million different examples of that, in both games and movies and like just horror media in general. But speaking of horror comedies, like I think that's my favorite genre. Like
really, I always thought it was kind of weird because they're so vastly different, and you're like putting them together.
Yeah, it's kind of like the salty and sweet thing, like dipping your fries in like a milkshake.
If we're gonna talk about horror,
I'm
kidding.
It's so good. But yeah, like I love like the Evil Dead movies, Army of Darkness. I recently rewatched Tucker and Dale versus Evil because it's on Netflix. Are you familiar with that movie?
No, I'm not.
Me neither.
Well, it's just like it's this really silly movie. It's like you kind of have to shut your brain off a little bit for it. But like the premise of the movie is like there's these two like hillbillies, right? And they're going up to their vacation home up in the mountains or out in the woods or whatever. And like this group of college kids is going out there to like be dumb college kids and like just get up to some delinquent stuff, right? Like they're like a bunch of frat kids or whatever. And like the hillbillies are just like normal, nice people. But like the college kids are like, oh my god, they're murderers, and then like just a huge bunch of misunderstandings occur, and it's like it's really funny. I like it at least.
Welcome everybody. We're back. Tris, you said you had some questions for us?
Yeah, so I wanted to try and bring it back to Chiptune, since this is the A Bit of Chiptune podcast, and ask about, any spooky or Halloween themed projects that y'all have been a part of or that you're currently working on.
Right.
And
we should really, next year we should do a Halloween A Bit of Chiptune collab.
Yeah, maybe next year. I think.
Yeah, it's too late now, obviously. All right, everybody,
right
you
now,
have 1 week. We're pumping out 10 songs.
Like, it would be doable, but everyone would
die. And plus,
probably cry.
Everything else is like due in November, and I don't want people. Yeah. Let me actually search up some of my old projects, because I haven't actually done anything specifically Halloween themed, but I've done some spooky stuff.
Cool.
Let's see. For the Family Slackers album, it was a Mario theme. What's that Mario theme that goes burr, 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 burr?
That's the castle theme, I think.
Yeah,
the
Super
castle
Mario
theme.
World, Fortress theme.
So I did that. Why don't I know the name of that? And
that is such a good
I made it
theme.
So extra spooky. Like, it didn't even sound like classically good. It just sounded very dark, and I really liked it. I had this like cool, dark, energetic vibe going on, and I had so much fun with it, and it was spooky. Aside from that, I really loved listening to. I wasn't part of Real Family Tracker Hours before this was released, but it was my introduction to Real Family Tracker Hours, the Halloween collab, which I'm gonna look up right now while you talk.
Yeah, I was just laughing because you were like, it wasn't even good.
It was I thought it was good. It wasn't like it wasn't pleasing to the ears. You know what I mean? Like, spooky music isn't I don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily like consonant, but that's okay.
Mm-hmm. It actually had some really cool like slides in it, and it was melodically very stable. It just kind of it wasn't my usual work. I'll say that. Oh, I found it.
Yeah, in terms of spooky stuff, I haven't done anything in a while. But I want to say it was like 2 years ago ish. I was still in school, so it was very difficult to manage, but I did Spooktober, where I tried to put out a song every week in October. And I did 2 chiptune songs, and then 3 kind of like fusion songs. The chiptune songs, or like the purely Family Tracker songs, I think came out way better. But I did the Scooby-Doo theme song, which is one of my most popular songs out there. Like, it has quite a few views. And that's always cool. Like, I found that people really like the classic cartoon themes.
Oh yeah, you did
and
Teen
then I
Titans
also did
too.
yeah, Teen Titans did really well, and like the DuckTales theme did really well. Um, but the other one that I did for Spooktober that year was the Ghost House theme from Super Mario World. So interesting that you brought up the castle theme.
I mean, it's all this. It's like all renditions of the same song.
Yeah, there there are a lot of similarities. But yeah, that one didn't do so well. Maybe it's just because it's like not a very I don't know. It's not a very hard song.
I mean, if you
I don't
did
think
like
people really think about.
if you did like a cover of the Overworld theme, it probably would have done better. I think, or like the Athletic theme,
Oh yeah, for sure.
because people are more familiar with their
Yeah,
songs.
yeah, that's true. But I mean, I'm still proud of it. Like I think it still sounds really good. Um, the other ones that I did like so I played guitar and sang over it, and like used for one of them I used the Family Tracker as just like the backing track. But I did the song 20 Eyes by the Misfits, and that's a fun one. It's like very classic horror. It's like it's not scary or spooky or anything. Like you just scream like 20 eyes a bunch of times. But yeah, like the Misfits as a band are very like Halloween friendly in my experience. And then I did a cover of The Number of the Beast by Iron Maiden because I'm a pretty big metalhead. Um, and then I did an original song that was kind of like spoopy themed. Um, and you know, kind of as expected, the original song didn't really get a lot of traction, but like I'm proud of the song, but really not proud of the recording. Like I think the recording is kind of hot garbage, honestly.
Hmm.
Well, as for me, I haven't really done as far as spooky songs go, I've done like two, I think, like originals. Like I did one around like a year ago, I think. That was 2A03, I believe.
Ooh.
And then I did one more recently that was like an art trade with someone. And it was like a theme for a character that was a witch. And I was like, okay, I can do something spooky. And I basically made like a Gruntilda's layer ripoff and like
Nice.
Snevin Tracker. So that was pretty fun. But that's as far as that goes, my relationship with spooky music.
I think we are actually joined by ZeroJanitor. Did you figure out the recording
Yes,
situation?
I finally got it working.
Woo!
I'm so happy.
Welcome.
Are you recording right now?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet. Well, welcome to ZeroJanitor.
Hello, everybody.
We were just talking about spooky projects that you've been working on or that you have worked on in the past. I know you had some, like your Lavender Town theme.
Yeah, I've covered Lavender Town like 4 or 5 times actually. Different styles. It's just because it's like the only song I know front to back without having to look at a reference at all.
Oh, yeah, that is useful. Have you?
I've done other.
No, you.
I've done other spooky songs. Like I think in like spring 2014, I was like really obsessed with like creepypasta stuff. I wrote a lot of stuff back then that was like kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Which is weird because it was in spring, so it's like as far away from Halloween as you can get.
Yeah.
The birds are out, the bees are buzzing. Time to write horror.
Did you were those like original songs or were there like covers of existing songs?
Well, a lot of them were original songs. They were just kind of like stuff that got discordant or had like weird spooky sounds in them or something like that. I did a couple of covers at Lavender Town, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
It's the spooky song.
Yeah.
There might have been something else. I can't remember what it was.
Honestly, as a kid, like as much as I love Halloween and spooky stuff, like now, as a kid, I was such a wuss. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, my older cousins like would lock me in, or once locked me in a room with like a stupid like a Halloween CD, and I was like scarred for life. It was just like, you know, the kind of thing that they would have playing in like a haunted house kind of deal. And like Lavender Town freaked me out. Like I couldn't hang as a kid. Like the music just made me so uncomfortable. But now I really like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's how I felt the first time I heard it. It was like, whoa, this is weird. I don't like it. Why is it all screechy?
It's actually even
Uh.
worse in the Japanese version. It uses like higher tones.
Yeah, I
Cool.
hear about that.
Was that just a creepypasta though, where it was
Well,
like
no,
kids committed
it's true, but that's
it-
what the creepypasta was based on.
Okay.
Yeah, like the Japanese version was just like the American version, but like a little, like some of the tones were a little higher, so they toned them down.
Mm.
But then the creepypasta is like, it's like a completely different thing. They exaggerate it till it's spooky.
Yeah.
There's actually like a fan-made version of it. It's like allegedly the original song.
Oh, and it has just like more overtones
like
or
a-
something.
It's like, it's a little bit different of arrangement. And it's like spookier and like, it's fake bit. It doesn't quite sound like the Game Boy,
Uh-huh.
but it sounds close enough that it could fool most people, I think.
Yeah, most of the filthy casuals.
It's got like scare chords in
Filthy
it.
casual.
Like all of the
It's actually not a
It's what?
bad arrangement if you ever look it up.
Mhm.
It's still like Lavender Town beta theme.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
Quote
It's like-
unquote beta theme.
It's supposed to be scarier.
More diminished chords and stuff.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, you'd have to listen to it. I can't really describe it very well.
Well, maybe we'll link it in the description so people can listen at your own risk, though, because,
Right.
like, you know, it supposedly will drive you
Yeah,
crazy.
be careful, you're gonna
A skeleton will pop
Take
out
it
of
into
your
insomnia
closet.
and give you headaches.
A ghost will be boo. Do a little dance.
So
with
I missed
spooky,
a lot of
scary
the
skeletons.
conversation,
Yeah.
technical difficulties and stuff, but what all of you talked about so far?
Well, the first portion was very free form. We were just kind of talking about, like, you know, what some of your Halloween traditions are, if you have any, if you're dressing up, favorite, like, Halloween movies or games.
Well, I'm not really doing anything this Halloween, but my favorite Halloween game, and I don't know what you got planned. We could talk about it later, but I'll just say right now it's Maniac Mansion. Probably won't surprise anyone who knows me.
I mean, it's a really good game.
It is.
I don't know anything about it.
It's like
Me neither.
it's basically like, you know, like those 50s B movies
Uh-huh.
where it's like oh no, this monster is gonna kill me, you know? It's kind of like that, but it's a point and click adventure.
Oh.
I think I've seen it.
So it's like
I just
It's like a
haven't
parody
played it.
of those like B-movie horror films.
Interesting.
Is it like a PC game or...
It's like on everything from that time period. It was a Commodore 64 game originally. Then it was ported to like the Amiga and DOS and the NES and also the Famicom, which is a completely different version.
Oh, wow. Oh, so it's like an old, like, 8-bit horror game then. Or, well, or
Yeah.
horror spoof.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like a parody of a horror game. It's a little scary occasionally at first, but then it's not because you figure out it's all a joke. So.
Yeah.
Basically, my Slenderman
That kind
experience.
of reminds me. I mean, we can definitely come back to the topic of favorite Halloween games, but it's interesting. Like, I think when you immediately think of horror games, like we were talking about some earlier, like DDLC and like Five Nights at Freddy's, a lot of those are more modern games with like more modern graphics, but like I can't really think of too many spooky, like legitimately scary horror games from like the 8-bit era.
Char was talking about one earlier.
oh
I
yeah.
think you were there.
Yeah, there's this Famicom game called Sweet Home, which I'm a huge fan of. Like, imagine like Resident Evil, but it's like a JRPG.
Oh.
And basically, what you do, you're like exploring this house, and you're like looking for clues as to what's happened there, and it's given to you in like forms of like, NPCs that like dead, like skeletons and stuff, and then like little notes that have been left behind. And what makes the game really interesting is that in most JRPGs, at least at that time, like when you die, you can like revive your character. But if a character dies in that game, they're like gone for good. And if they all die, then you lose the game basically. So yeah, it's a very interesting game. It never came out of anywhere outside of Japan because it was kind of violent and a little gory. So yeah, it's definitely a really good game. It's by Capcom. If you're like looking for some spooky games to play.
Was it an NES game or a Famicom game? I guess?
Well, yes, it was a Famicom game.
Huh. Yeah, I know Nintendo was really strict on stuff like that, so like that probably also affected things. Yeah, actually, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. TSTXD.
TSTXD 777.
Yeah, so that person brought up
TST.
TST just brought up the Earthbound hack. And yeah, like I was just gonna say, that's more of that's a 16-bit hack, but like even on the Super Nintendo, I can't really think of too many games that were legitimately scary. But I like
there's Clock Tower.
I was thinking that too. When you said the point and click like horror game, that's what I was thinking of.
Yeah, but like I wonder how much of like just licensing was an issue. Like I know Nintendo was really pushing for a family friendly kind of thing, so like they didn't really condone like the more adult games that came through.
I mean, it was interesting because like Sega is honestly like way more forgiving about like stuff like that because a Splatterhouse 2 actually came out in America, whereas like a game like that probably wouldn't have come out on like Super Nintendo anywhere outside of Japan.
I also imagine there isn't so much of a market for horror games because like even today, like people nerd out about like all these indie horror games, but what's like selling in the AAA industry is like
that's also really true
process,
because like back then, like the best selling games were like okay, there's this platformer and you play as a bunny and then you collect items, That's kind of like what the best selling games were.
Yeah.
Yes, the beloved bunny platformer.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like you had the whole situation with Mortal Kombat where like people were really into the gore, but the Super Nintendo version like didn't have the blood and stuff, or you had to like turn it on with a cheat or something.
Oh no, I don't think it had blood at all in the Super Nintendo version. I think like the cheat was only in the Genesis one.
But yeah, like
I think there's tremendous like potential for horror in like 8-bit games and like 16-bit games because like if you look at Silent Hill and you look at Resident Evil, those games are almost kind of improved because like the lo-fi nature like prevented you from seeing very far or like totally understanding what's going on around you, and that made it all the more terrifying. Whereas like a lot of the AAA horror games that have been coming out the past 2 years are like scary at first, but after a little while you're like very easily able to recognize everything that's around you, just because like everything's so pristine and clear.
Yeah, and even within the Resident Evil franchise, like granted with the advent of VR, like that adds another layer. So like the Resident Evil Biohazard on
That's
VR,
true.
like I don't know that I would want to play that just because it seems like kind of a lot of sensory input. But like personally, I think playing one of the original like Resident Evil 1 or 2 is more scary than playing Resident Evil 4 even, just because that has more of like a suspense kind of action feel rather than like, you're actually trapped in this world with zombies.
I just thought of another NES game that's like pretty spooky, scary. Shadowgate.
Oh yeah.
I'm not familiar actually.
Yeah, it's kind of like a point and click adventure game, sort of. Like
I'm sensing a theme here.
like it's got
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Nothing scarier than cursors.
The scariest part about the game is
I don't think
that you use a cursor on an NES.
Yeah, but it's got like, it's kind of that style where it's like you have a menu thing, and there's like the picture in the middle is like the room, and it's like a static image. Sometimes there would be sprites there that can like have animations or be interacted with or stuff. But it's like you see one room at a time, and the art style is actually pretty good, which makes it even scarier because it's like more realistic, like, but in a 8-bit kind of way. Everything's all dithered and it kind of looks like grungy, unnatural, some kind of thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really appealing. I played through it once, but I don't remember anything about it.
My issue,
but I do remember it being kind of scary.
My issue with the game is that you'll like forget to do something, right? And then like 30 minutes into the game, you'll find that like one fatal mistake will like fuck you over, and you just die.
Oh no.
That's the scariest thing of all.
Yeah, it's like very dated like game design, honestly. But if you're into that, then play Shadowgate.
Yeah, I'm very not into that. Like, I
I've been
value my
dying to
time way
mention
too much
this.
now.
Ever.
Well, I mean, when you're a kid, you've got like all the time in the world.
Yeah,
So I mean, I
that's
think
true.
like playing games like that would probably be way more fun.
To an extent, like, I even remember being really mad, like, if I was in a dungeon in Final Fantasy and, like, I forgot to save and I died to a boss and had to do the whole thing over again, I'd be like, man, screw this game! And then, like, I wouldn't play it ever.
That's why I don't
Right.
play JRPGs very often, because like that always happens to me, and then I get frustrated
Yeah,
and
it's
quit.
less of a thing now because the autosave. But,
So now I just
but yeah, I think, like, thinking back to, scary experiences as a kid, we talked about it a little bit before, but like Lavender Town really freaked me out. And that had everything to do with the music. I mean, yeah, of course there were ghosts and stuff too, but I mean, on paper, right? Like, you have four voices that you can use on the Game Boy sound chip, right? 5 if you include noise.
Yeah.
And like, you can't record like screams or anything. Like, there was no sampling method for the Game Boy. So like, all of the
Well, that's not completely true. You could. But it would
Erky
just, like,
dragging metal.
You could, but it would
none
just
of
like
that.
there's no practical sampling method for the Game Boy.
Yeah, so I mean, it just like, it wasn't done right. And it's this like tiny little handheld pocket device, right? So like, there's very little that's scary about it, to an outside person, and like even to an adult. But as a kid, like, that scared the crap out of me. So it kind of makes me wonder, like, what are the elements of horror, right? Like, what are some tools that devs have and can employ to like creep you out, both in like old school games and even like nowadays.
Oh ho ho. This is my element.
Well, I've always heard like less is more with horror.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, the more you keep uncertain or like just kind of suspicious, the scarier it is. It's usually considered less scary to just show the monster in bright
Oh
light
yeah, definitely.
than it would be to just kind of hint that it's there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think there are definitely like different styles, right, or different tiers of horror. Like, you have like your jump scares, which I think are pretty low hanging fruit because it's just like playing on that, like, yeah, something loud jumped out at me all of a sudden, like, it's gonna get a rise out of you. But that's not necessarily like horror. I think the tension and the fear in that is really the absence of a thing and like anticipation of it. But so I guess my point with that is like, yeah, that's one way, or like also the not showing the monster. I think that really
Right.
really is effective for me.
You've got the Five Nights at Freddy's, and then you've got the amnesia side of it, where you like aren't even supposed to look at the monster. You're just supposed to like avoid it, and you don't really like see them, or more accurately hear them, until you're like a third into the game, just because you're constantly just like searching around. Like, very little of that game is actually action. and that lends itself well to like making the few times when the monsters do appear really tense.
Another game that really scared me when I first played it was Metroid Fusion.
I haven't heard of that.
If it's what I think you're talking about, I agree.
Yeah, because like in that game, Samus, like, long story short, there's an evil clone of Samus, and it's like horrifying. But it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, all of the grotesque monsters are like creepy, sure, but the SAX or the SAX, I don't know how to pronounce it.
The sax.
Always, yeah, the sax is just a horrifying instrument. Just because, like, you know, it took a familiar form, right? It was Samus, but like it had those moments where it like showed her face, and it was just like Samus's face, but without pupils and like in a really creepy way.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's like staring into your soul.
Yeah.
True. Back to that familiarity. It's kind of like an uncanny valley for like concepts. You know, like you see something familiar that's just a little bit off, and that like freaks you out. You know, like this thing that you attached like nurture to and that you're comfortable with, and then it like kind of turns on you. Like, you know that it's dangerous, but you don't want it to be because it's this thing that you've put so much love into already.
I feel like that's a really effective, like, that's one way to get away with like showing the monster, right? Like if you try too hard, it can kind of come off as cheesy. But that uncanny valley is a really like useful tool, I think, in horror, especially when you're working with limitations like that. Because like the Game Boy Advance, in my experience, is approximately as powerful as the Super Nintendo, more or less, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
Like there were a lot of ports,
in different ways.
In terms of graphical power, though, right? Like there weren't very many like cutscenes that were like photorealistic.
Do you think there are like two different kinds? Well, obviously there are different kinds of horror, but like there's a kind of horror that like freaks you out in the moment, and then there's the kind of horror that like lingers and you like keep thinking about it when you're like trying to go to sleep, or like days later, like it comes back in your head. I think the familiarity thing that keeps getting brought up really kind of centers on that, because like you start associating it with like everything that you've associated that other familiar thing with, and then it just keeps coming back in your head.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like that there's that kind of, to me it's like it is a little bit apples and oranges, but also there's like tiers to it. Like I like spooky movies, and I like gory like slashers, but I'm not really worried that like Michael Myers or Jason is gonna like pop through my window at any given moment. But like
that's true.
Something like there are still moments where I'm like, I don't know, just thrown off or put off, like thinking about, I can't really think of an example, but like, yeah, there are other like deeper psychological things that like kind of spook me.
Right. Body horror is so effective.
And that's another thing.
Man,
I want to say it was Gaijin Goomba. Like,
there are things that just work. Like, I think the other day I was watching a video. I don't remember if it was the Pixies, but basically it was just going over like a band, and I think it like cut to this clip really short where like somebody cut an eye and it started leaking out, and like later on I just couldn't stop thinking about it. Like, because it was right after I took a neurobiology course, or like unit on like sensory, so we learned about what the eye is like inside, and it was like, wait, the eye actually would do that if you cut it open, and it just kind of wouldn't get out of my head.
Gross.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just gonna say, like, we haven't really talked about it, but like horror is really subjective. It's like a really personal thing, because it's like for some people, yeah, like body horror is really effective, but for other people, I think it's not. Like, and the same goes for everything that we've talked about so far.
True.
Like, some people are extra affected by jump scares, and other people are just like, meh. So I don't know that there's like a universally scary thing.
Yeah, probably not. I'm thinking about like phobias. You know, I have friends who are afraid of like holes, you know? And even I get a little bit irked out, but it's like completely irrational. And there are people who have that fear, and there are people who don't have that fear. You know, I have a very close friend of mine who has a fear of odd numbers, who I will not name. And you know, like a horror game that has a lot of odd numbers in it would freak that person out, but you know, that wouldn't add to the horror for me.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't be admitting this on like a public podcast, but I had kind of an uncommon phobia, like when I was a teenager. Yeah, it was. I don't want to say what it was, but it was a body part, and it wasn't like, you know, a normally hidden body part. It's like something you would see every day.
Oh wow!
And it like made life suck.
Yeah, that sounds awful. I'm sorry.
Oof. Oh.
I don't even really know why I had it, like what caused it. But it was like very intense for a while, and then eventually it just kind of like went away.
I don't know. I mean, glad to hear it's not a problem anymore.
Phobias are so interesting. Like, it's a strange combination of associations and like primal instincts that. Ooh.
Yeah,
sorry,
like
I've
it
thought
sort
a
of
lot
taps
about
into your like lizard brain, right? Like
this
your
is why
fight or
Halloween's
flight,
my favorite.
and it's like a
right.
I don't know, like a miswiring where something like feels life-threatening even if it's not really.
I think maybe that's why some games where you like aren't allowed to move are so effective. Because like personally, I can get really anxious if I'm like sitting in the same place for 3 hours or so, like a long car ride or something. Yeah. Maybe it's kind of like allergies or like whether or not you like certain types of foods, because they're like, you know, you're allergic to things when you're born, and then there are also things like I have an uncle who drank a ton of chocolate milk when he was really little, and now he hates chocolate because it made him sick when he was little, and that like kind of really early built-in association caused kind of like that lifelong dislike. Things to think about. Not very chiptune related, but things to think about.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably someone out there who has a phobia of chiptunes.
Oh, definitely.
It's probably got something to do with Lavender Town.
Yeah, honestly.
Probably.
Stupid Lavender Town.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. How about some final thoughts? I think we're around the time when we can conclude. That's the thing. So I'm ready to wrap this up soon.
Okay. Well, any final thoughts?
There's a lot of good old school horror games. There you go.
There you have it, folks.
Yeah. In terms of recommendations, I feel like there's a lot of really good indie / like ROM hacks. Like there's the Halloween ROM hack that TST talked about, the Earthbound one, which I'm pretty sure Toby Fox, if it's the same one that I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
It has Megalovania in it also.
Yeah, Toby Fox, that recycling son of a gun.
Yes, ZeroJanitor.
Undertale is another good one. It's not so much scary, but like if you do the genocide run, it can be a little spooky.
It has one scary part.
It's not scary, but it's pretty Halloweeny.
Yeah,
and you got a lot of like.
It has a spoopy ghost.
The one part is scary.
Yeah.
Like, if you know what part I mean.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and go read some creepypastas in honor of Halloween. Like Ben Drowned.
Read some Goosebumps.
There you go.
Ben Drowned.
Right,
That's
Ben Drowned.
my like first and only creepypasta video game related one. I didn't write it, but like
my absolute favorite one's probably Lost Silver. I think it's really good.
Oh, that's the Pokemon one, right?
Yeah, it's the Pokemon one.
There's a Pokemon creepypasta I like. It's called Creepy Black. It's not a very good name, but it's a good story.
Oh yeah, that one's pretty good too. I like the concept behind it.
Yeah.
Any creepypasta suggestions from Cass?
Oh, not off the top of my head. Literally just look up creepypasta and you'll find interesting stuff.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. I already did my promo for SCP that isn't sponsored, so that's what you get.
Oh, that's right. Hashtag not sponsored.
Yeah.
Hashtag sponsor us, please.
Hashtag someone sponsor us, please.
Yeah, so I guess that wraps up this fun little podcast. We hope you enjoyed hanging out with us. Hope you have a very safe and happy Halloween.
Bye.
Bye.
Also, just gonna add, we've got Twitter, we've got Discord, we've got our own channels, links in the description. Check it out.
All right, happy Halloween, everyone.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween! Be spoopy.